Morning, guys, and welcome to the 23rd day of Prader Willi Syndrome Awareness Month. Things I wanted to talk about. I apologize for not posting a video yesterday. I was actually caught up in pressure washing our home and our driveway, so kind of getting everybody gets them around the same time in the neighborhood, but we get these notices from our HOA telling us we need to do certain things. So I wanted to start on that. I got about halfway done and two hoses went out on me. So I'm gonna have to order a new hose for my pressure washer and a new fabric hose for our home, or some kind of hose for our home. But anyway, yesterday's topic was the rarity of PWS, and that being in the PWSA deck. And I wanted to speak about that a little bit in terms of social consciousness about PWS and how that's changed, or seemingly how it will change. First of all, I think Prader Willi syndrome is going to be a household name in the coming years. More people are going to know about it. And that when I was younger, it was so unheard of. In a way, it was like something that someone made up. It being a multifaceted disorder is nothing you can kind of explain to it. I couldn't explain that to my peers, and then have them understand what it is, or, really relate to it at all. So that's just the way that is. I think now kids are a little bit more cognizant of neurodivergence, which I think is a blessing. That helps in picking up the causality of other things. Kids will understand, things like autism might be related to something else, or, things like that. So that's another social consciousness understanding change that's happened. And in terms of rarity, we know the figures. It's like 1 in 15,000 is the rate of birth for PWS. There's been some research about that being a much higher figure, about 1 in 8,000. And I think it comes down to, you see the clinical criteria for someone that has Prader Willi syndrome. They may have one or two of those criteria, might not even be thought of to have, depending on the criteria that they've met clinically. They may not even be thought to have Prader Willi syndrome. And that really comes down to that not everybody that has Prader Willi syndrome is hyperphagic, or that it shows that way. It is the number one concern and number one herald, if you will, of our disease, but it's not always true with people that are genetically positive that they'll have hyperphagia. Talking about the source, and we know of UPD, we know of deletion, and we know that there's mosaic Prader Willi syndrome effects of both Angelman's and Prader Willi syndrome, and that may be more difficult to pick up. So there's tests now and for that, so that it's a really rare form of Prader Willi syndrome. And with that, it becomes more familial in terms of, or paternal rather, in causality. Thing that I wanted to pick up here is that I actually had two first cousins that were hyperphagic, and that had, although never formally diagnosed with Prader Willi syndrome or anything like that, it really could be, and I think, or really genetic for sure. Show you a picture of my cousin here, Jason. Jason passed away in 2011. We were really close growing up. We had a lot of things in common, to being two big kids and two first cousins, and we played a lot. And I stayed a lot of nights with Jason and his sister Stephanie, and my Aunt Gail, and Uncle Clyde. Jason and Stephanie both had issues like myself with obesity. I really feel like, although not ever positively diagnosed with anything, I really think that Jason suffered from hyperphagia. He was always morbidly obese, and it got to his heart. So he was a character. He was a good guy. He liked to cut up a lot. So I think now it's kind of been ruled out for me having UPD or some kind of deletion, and it's going to be further more complicated for the source of my Prader-Willi syndrome to be identified. I feel like I'm getting to something closer to give maybe my memory of him closure, maybe his mom some closure. Both Jason and Stephanie passed away. Jason passing in 2011. We were born. We were, I think, a year apart, or actually, I think we might have been born the same year. Stephanie was younger, and Stephanie had obesity as well. She had actually done really well, and she had gastric bypass surgery, but unfortunately, she got into a wreck. She was paralyzed, and she was making strides to get back from paralyzation, but some other things arose for Stephanie. Couldn't make her way through it. You know, her body kind of gave up on her a little bit, and poor thing just got a really bad infection and passed away. So I miss them both. I think about what getting closer to identifying the source of my Prader-Willi syndrome might mean in terms of maybe having some closure and answer about their overall health, that could kind of key into it. Another thing, moving on, getting away from rareness, I wanted to speak to social cues, facial expressions, kind of the part of the neurodivergence of Prader-Willi syndrome, and that my problems with social cues aren't really social cues. I had subtext problems because of my attention deficit disorder. Sometimes I don't read things correctly. So, like, I don't know when people are joking, or sometimes, or when, you know, people are serious. And, you know, it just goes back to my anxiety and my attention deficit disorder. So that's my personal thing. I don't have a big problem with reading facial cues and things like that. Mine's more social subtext issues related to my attention deficit disorder. I know as a parent to someone on the spectrum, I know what that looks like in terms of facial cues and interpretation. Masking is a common technique that folks will do that have those problems. My daughter masks, and I know it's something that is difficult because you're basically, it's kind of like the social facial cues, but you're putting on camouflage. They're putting on camouflage to be acceptable in society. So they're, you know, she's going against her intuition, and she's trying to basically bring her behavior, mask her behavior to something acceptable, sociological or societal acceptance. That's another thing that you have with folks on the spectrum, and I'm sure the kids and adults that are on the spectrum with PWS face that same issue. At the same time, you know, I think that with everyone with Prader-Willi syndrome, we have some kind of innate social engineering that we try to do around food. So we'll befriend anyone we think will feed us. So that can really, you know, just that being another form of masking and social engineering in terms of trying to, you know, hey, yeah, and, you know, that can be a challenge. And for me, I was always kind of, because I picked up on the social cues, it was hard for me because facing the metabolism and the hyperphagia of Prader-Willi syndrome, anytime there was an event or anything like that, I knew I could pick up when people were staring at me or thinking, oh, he shouldn't eat that, or things, you know, because it's actually, my mom's really good at picking up things too. I'm really good at picking up things too. I can kind of pick up on when people are, when you feel like you're the panda in the cage, kind of, when there's a verbal communication to it, but when, you know, people make you feel like you're living up to your size or your obesity, because they think you're eating too much or you shouldn't be eating that, or they want to pass judgment on how you're feeding yourself. The world's changing there too, because people realize that there's obesity in itself is disease, and that for someone that, like myself with Prader Willi, it's more than just obesity. It's a cruel joke because of the issues that we face with metabolism and hyperphagia. There's other diseases like that as well that are cruel. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is cruel for women because it causes insulin resistance and testosterone to build up into excess weight, and you know, they have issues with those things. So hormonal and obesity and metabolism issues because of those things. So, you know, we're living in a world that's becoming more understanding. If not, I don't know if it's becoming, the kindness is still the same. I think the kindness level is probably the same, but people are just more aware. Maybe awareness has changed, and that's really what why I'm doing this channel, is I want to change the awareness for Prader Willi syndrome. Like I said, I feel like having answers for my family on some things would be great too. Well, that's it. I don't want to run on too long, so I hope you have a great weekend and a good Memorial Day. I know it's not Veterans Day, we're remembering those that we've lost and those that have had losses. But I just want to say thank you to those that served as well. Hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.